Remember the exact moment it happened, not the moment I succeeded, not the moment the numbers finally made sense, or the deal closed, or the notification came through at 2 a.m., confirming everything I had worked for was real. No. I remember the moment I sat in the middle of all of it, the apartment with the view, the phone full of congratulations, the calendar packed with proof that I mattered, and I felt absolutely, completely, terrifyingly nothing. Not sadness, not joy, nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. Just the blue light of a screen. Just a man in an expensive chair wondering if the silence was trying to tell him something he had been too busy to hear. That was the beginning of the only honest thing I have ever built. I built the mornings first. That is where it started. The architecture of a life optimized for output. 4:30 alarm. No snooze, because snooze is weakness. Or at least that is what I told myself. Cold water. Journal. Not for healing, for performance tracking. What did I accomplish yesterday? What is the target today? Where am I falling short? I turned my inner life into a spreadsheet. I turned my body into a machine. I turned every hour into a unit of production, and I called it discipline. And people looked at me and said, "I don't know how you do it." And I smiled like I had a secret, when the real secret was that I had no idea what I was doing it for anymore. I built the reputation next. The version of me that showed up in rooms and made people feel certain. You know that feeling when someone walks in and the air changes? I practiced that, genuinely practiced it. The tone of voice, the measured pause before speaking, the way you hold eye contact just long enough to communicate that you are not afraid. I became fluent in the performance of confidence, and the terrifying part is that it worked. People believed it. They followed it. They invested in it. And every time they did, the gap between who they thought I was and who I actually was grew a little wider, like a crack in a wall you keep painting over instead of repairing. I thought if I kept moving, the gap would close on its own. I was wrong. Tell me something. And I mean this. Stop for a second and actually ask yourself this. When was the last time someone asked how you were doing and you told them the truth? Not the edited version. Not busy but good, or tired but grateful, or can't complain. The actual truth. The one that lives below the performance. The one that only comes out at 3 a.m. when you have run out of distractions and the room gets honest with you. When was the last time you let someone into that room? Because I know what it is like to keep that room locked. I know what it is like to build your entire identity around the idea that you do not need to let anyone in there. That needing people is a liability. That vulnerability is a strategy of the weak. I learned that early, not from a book, not from a mentor, but from the invisible curriculum of childhood, the one nobody teaches you explicitly, but everybody learns. You learn it from the moments your emotions were met with silence, from the times you cried and were told to toughen up, from watching the adults around you perform their own versions of strength while something quiet and unnamed broke behind their eyes. You learn that love is conditional, that it comes when you perform well, that it withdraws when you disappoint. And so you became very, very good at not disappointing. You became excellent, actually. You became the kind of person who gets things done, who figures it out, who does not ask for help because asking for help means admitting you are not enough. And somewhere in your nervous system, that equation got hardwired. Not enough equals unloved, and unloved equals unsafe, and unsafe is the one thing you will not allow yourself to feel. So you build, you achieve, you optimize, you succeed, and you wonder why it feels like running on a track that has no finish line. Music. Rhythm shifts, slightly more urgent. I built the empire next. That is the word I used in my head, though I never said it out loud because I knew how it sounded. Empire. But that is what I was building. Not a life. An empire. The distinction matters more than I can tell you. An empire is for conquest. It has borders to defend. It has a throne to protect. It demands that you stay armored always, because empires fall when the king looks weak. A home is different. A home is for arriving. For removing the armor at the door, for being seen in the kitchen light without the performance, for saying I am tired without it meaning I am failing. I did not know the difference then. I thought they were the same thing. I thought the bigger I built externally, the more safe I would feel internally. I thought the accomplishments would eventually add up to enough, and the enough would eventually feel like peace. I thought achievement was the path to belonging. Here's what I learned. It is not. It is actually the opposite. The more I achieved, the more I had to protect. The more I had to protect, the more I armored. The more I armored, the more alone I became. Not alone in the room. I was never alone in the room. Alone in a deeper way, the kind of alone where you are surrounded by people who admire the version of you they can see, and you are standing right there knowing they have never actually met you. That kind of alone is the loneliest thing I have ever experienced. Lonelier than any empty room. And then she walked into my life. Not dramatically. Not the way they write it in films, with the slow motion and the orchestral swell and the moment where time stops. She walked in the way real things walk in, quietly without announcement, like a morning that arrives without asking if you are ready for it. She did not try to fix me. I need you to understand that, because this is not a story about being saved. I was not rescued. She did not arrive with answers or with the key to my locked room or with some transformative wisdom that unlocked everything I had been hiding from. She just stayed. She sat in the same room as my silence and did not try to fill it. She asked questions and waited for honest answers instead of comfortable ones. She noticed when I was performing, and she looked at me with this expression. Not accusation, not pity. Something closer to recognition, like she had seen this before. Like she knew the exact shape of the wall I had built because she had her own walls, different bricks, same architecture. And somehow that was enough to make me want to stop building walls. Look at me for a second. Not at the version of me that has the answer. Look at the version that is still figuring it out, because that is the only honest version I have left. I was terrified of her. I need to say that clearly. Not of her, of what being known by her would mean. Because if you let someone in close enough to see the unedited version and they leave, the story you told yourself is confirmed. The one that says you are always too much and not enough simultaneously. The one that says the real you, not the performance, not the achievement, not the version that functions brilliantly in rooms, but the real, uncertain, sometimes lost, sometimes small version of you is not lovable. That story is the most dangerous thing most of us carry. And we carry it quietly, beneath all the success, beneath all the capability, beneath all the evidence that we are, by any measurable standard, doing fine. Don't deny it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. She stayed when I was difficult. Not in a martyrdom way. She was not a saint, and she was not performing sacrifice. She stayed because she chose to, and she said so, and she kept choosing it, and slowly the choosing started to mean something. Slowly I started to believe that maybe presence was not a trick, that maybe she was not waiting for me to fail so she could confirm that I had never deserved this, that maybe, and this was the hardest thing, I did not have to earn her. I had never not had to earn something. Every relationship in my life had an invisible ledger. I give this, you give that. I perform this way, you stay. I stop performing, you leave. I had been living in a transactional universe for so long that I had forgotten that another kind of universe existed. One where you are valued not for what you produce, but for who you are when you are not producing anything. She introduced me to that universe through small things, not through speeches or breakthroughs or one defining moment of clarity, through small things. Through the way she would sit beside me in the evenings without needing us to be doing anything. Through the way she would say, "You seem far away today," instead of "What is wrong with you?" Through the way she would laugh at herself genuinely without self-consciousness in a way that reminded me that being human is not a problem to be solved, but a condition to be lived. I started watching her, not possessively, carefully. The way you watch something that is teaching you without knowing it is teaching you. Here's what I learned from watching her. She was not trying to be more than she was. She was not performing in vulnerability or optimizing her mornings or tracking her emotional output in a journal. She was just present. Present in a way I had forgotten was possible. Present in a way that made the room feel different, made time feel different, made me feel like maybe I did not have to sprint through every moment in order to justify taking up space in it. I built something different after that, slowly, with completely different materials, not bricks of achievement or walls of performance, something more like honesty. Like the willingness to say, "I don't know," in a room where I had previously only said, "Here's the plan." Like the courage to sit with discomfort instead of immediately converting it into productivity. Like the discipline, and I still call it discipline because it is harder than anything I have done, of being present with another person without half my attention already in tomorrow. I built mornings that started differently. Not immediately. This did not happen because I decided it. It happened gradually through failure, through the uncomfortable recognition that my old systems were not serving the life I was actually trying to build. The alarm still came early sometimes, but some mornings I stayed in the room longer. Some mornings I had a conversation before I opened anything that demanded something from me. Some mornings I let the morning be a morning instead of a unit of output, small, quiet, revolutionary. Wait, before you scroll, because I see you, I know exactly where you are right now. I have been exactly where you are right now. Before you tell yourself this is not about you, before you find the comfortable exit that lets you stay exactly as armored as you walked in here, before all of that, ask yourself what you are building right now. With your days, your energy, your attention, your best hours, ask yourself if you are building a life or an empire. Ask yourself if the people closest to you, actually know you, or if they know a very well-crafted, very disciplined, very impressive version of you that has never once shown them what it is like when you are afraid. Ask yourself when you last let someone in far enough to matter. I thought I was protecting myself by keeping people at a careful distance, by being impressive enough that no one would ever think to check what was underneath. I thought the armor was practical, efficient, smart. I thought emotional inaccessibility was a feature, not a flaw. Here's what I learned. The armor does not protect you, it isolates you. It keeps out the pain, yes, but it keeps out everything else too. It keeps out the specific warmth of being known, the extraordinary relief of being seen without flinching, the thing that happens in a room when two people stop performing for each other and just exist honestly together. You cannot build walls that are selectively permeable. You cannot say, I will allow enjoying connection and love, but not vulnerability or uncertainty or need. The same thickness that blocks the bad blocks all of it. You build the wall, you lose the full range of being alive. I did not understand that. I thought I was winning. I was incredibly, elaborately lonely in a way that looked, from the outside, like confidence. She did not tear the wall down. I need to say that again because it matters. She did not rescue me from it. She just sat outside it for long enough without demanding entry until I started to wonder why I had built it. She was safe enough that the question became possible. That is what safety does. It does not force you open. It just makes you curious about what opening might feel like. And one day, I opened a door I had not opened in a very long time. Not dramatically, not in a single confessional flood, just an honest sentence. A small truth offered without performance. Something like, I am not okay today, without immediately following it with a reason that made me seem in control of the not okayness. Just the admission, plain, undefended, handed over, she received it. She did not panic, or withdraw, or look at me differently with disappointment. She received it the way you receive something precious, with both hands, with steadiness, with quiet acknowledgement, and I felt something I had not felt in years. Something so simple it almost embarrassed me. I felt less alone. Here's what I learned about rebuilding. It does not look like what you expect. You expect a turning point. One grand moment where everything realigns and the person you have been pretending to be is replaced by the person you actually are in a single cinematic transformation. It does not work that way. Rebuilding looks like a Tuesday afternoon, where you choose to be honest instead of impressive. It looks like a conversation where you let someone finish a sentence instead of already preparing your response. It looks like recognizing, slowly, imperfectly over time, that you are not the sum of your achievements, that you existed before the accomplishments and you would exist after them, and the person who exists in the middle, the one who wakes up before any accomplishment has happened yet, that person deserves care and presence and acknowledgement too. Rebuilding looks like choosing again and again to show up as a person rather than a performance. It is not glamorous. Nobody films a documentary about the Tuesday afternoon you decided to be honest. Nobody charts the growth curve of emotional availability. There is no moment where the music swells and you are transformed and everything becomes beautiful. There is just the daily choice repeated until the choosing becomes instinct, until the honesty becomes the default, until the presence is no longer an effort but a practice embedded in who you are. I built that, brick by brick, choice by choice, imperfectly with setbacks, with mornings when I fell back into the old architecture, because it was familiar and the familiar is seductive when the new way is difficult. But I kept building music, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The foundation had to be different this time. That was the first thing I had to accept, that everything I had built before was constructed on the wrong foundation. Not that it was worthless, not that the discipline and the ambition and the drive were enemies, they were not. They were tools I had used for the wrong purpose. I had used the tools of building to build distance instead of connection, performance instead of presence, empire instead of home. The foundation this time was honesty, about what I was afraid of, about what I needed, about what I had been performing and what lay beneath the performance, about the childhood lessons that had become adult programs running silently in the background, dictating more of my choices than I had ever allowed myself to examine. The honesty was not comfortable. It is never comfortable to look at the programs and admit they are there. It is never comfortable to say, I learned to seek approval because approval felt like safety and safety was not guaranteed, without immediately following it with a solution. Sometimes the honest thing is just to see it, to let it be seen, to stop running from the recognition. She sat with me in the honesty. That is the thing I want you to understand about what love actually looks like. Not the romantic version, not the cinematic version, but the real version. The real version is sitting with someone in their honesty without trying to fix it. The real version is being a safe enough presence that the person beside you can say the true thing instead of the managed thing. The real version is choosing, again and again, to see someone. Not the version they have decided to show you, but the full version, the complicated version, the one that contradicts itself and struggles and sometimes regresses and is not a linear arc of improvement, but a human being trying to navigate the genuinely difficult project of being alive. She chose that version of me, the full one, the unedited one, and in doing so, she taught me that it was worth choosing. I want to tell you something about emptiness, because I know a version of you, maybe the version sitting with this right now, is familiar with that particular silence, the one that finds you in the middle of what should be enough, the one that visits on Sunday evenings or in the car after something goes well, or in the first seconds of waking before the day gives you something to do. That hollow, questioning silence. I used to treat that silence as a malfunction, as evidence that something was wrong with me, that I had failed at the basic task of being content, that everyone else had figured something out I was still missing. I would immediately fill it with work, with planning, with the beautiful distraction of the next goal, the next milestone, the next version of success that would surely, finally be enough. Here's what I learned. The emptiness is not a malfunction. It is an invitation. It is the most honest voice you have, and it is asking you something, and it keeps asking until you are willing to sit still long enough to hear the question. The question usually is some version of this: what are you actually doing this for? Not the surface answer. Not for my family or for my future or because I want to build something meaningful. Those answers are true, but they are also sometimes comfortable covers for the real answer, which is harder to look at. The question is asking you to go deeper, to find the place where the drive actually comes from, to examine whether you are moving towards something or running from something, and whether the running has been working. It had not been working for me. I had been running from the fear of being ordinary, the fear of being seen and found insufficient, the fear that if I stopped achieving, stopped producing, stopped being demonstrably excellent, the people I loved would quietly, politely withdraw their love. That conditional love equation again, the one written in childhood, running in the background, shaping every choice. I had to stop running long enough to examine the equation, to ask whether it was actually true, to look at the evidence of my actual life, the people who had stayed not because I was impressive, but because they knew me, and let that evidence revise the equation. That revision did not happen overnight. Old programs do not uninstall quickly, but they do uninstall. Slowly, through honesty and presence, and the repeated experience of being known and not abandoned, the equation begins to change. The terror of ordinary begins to loosen its grip. The performance begins to feel less like survival and more like a habit you are ready to set down. You begin, slowly, imperfectly, with setbacks, to believe that you are enough, not because you have achieved enough, not because you have finally crossed some threshold of success that earns the belief, but because the belief was available to you all along, and it required not more achievement but less armor to access. Look at me for a second. Right here. Not past me, not through me, not to the next thing that is waiting for your attention. Here. I am not talking to the version of you that has it together. I am talking to the version underneath that version. The one that wakes up sometimes and feels the weight of everything you are carrying and wonders quietly whether you can keep carrying it. The one that watches other people seem easy in their skin and wonders what they know that you do not. The one that is very good at showing up, very good at delivering, very good at being what the situation requires, and is exhausted, genuinely exhausted, by the constancy of the performance. I am talking to that version of you. And I want to say something that version of you may not hear very often. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to not have the answer. You are allowed to need someone, not as weakness, not as failure, not as proof that you are insufficient, but as the simple human acknowledgement that we are not built for isolation, that the strength that keeps everything together is not diminished by the admission that keeping everything together is sometimes very hard, that the bravest thing a person can do sometimes is not to push through alone, but to reach out and let someone in. You are allowed to be known. Don't deny it. You have been waiting for permission, not for someone else to grant it to you, but to find it in yourself. Permission to stop performing. Permission to be, for a little while, in a relationship or a room or a moment, the uncertain version. The one that does not have a next step mapped out, the one that sits in the not knowing and resists the urge to immediately convert it into productivity. That permission is available to you right now. Not because you have earned it, because you are a person, and persons deserve the right to be fully themselves in the presence of someone who loves them. She taught me that home is not a place. I had been building places for years, beautiful, impressive, architecturally significant places. Places that said something about who I was, or at least who I was performing being. I thought if I built the right place, I would finally feel at home in my own life. Home is not a place. Home is a quality of presence. It is the feeling of being in a room or a conversation or a moment and not needing it to be different, not strategizing an exit, not cataloging what needs to change, not performing for whoever is watching. Just arriving fully into what is, into who you are, into the specific, irreplaceable texture of this life, this person, this ordinary Tuesday. She did not give me that. I want to be precise about that, because the point is not what she gave me, but what she made possible. She made it possible by being present enough, honest enough, safe enough, that I could stop running long enough to find it in myself. She was the condition, not the cause. The love was the invitation. The arriving was mine. And when I arrived, when I finally genuinely put down the performance and arrived in my own life, It was not the dramatic transformation I had been promised by every story I had ever absorbed about what becoming yourself looked like. It was quieter than that, smaller, more ordinary. It felt like exhaling after holding your breath for a very long time. It felt like the first morning in years that I woke up and was curious about the day instead of immediately managing it. It felt like sitting across a table from someone who knew me, the real me, the full version, and feeling without having to earn it like that was enough. Here's what I learned about love. Real love, the kind that actually changes you, the kind that is built rather than felt, chosen rather than fallen into. Real love does not ask you to be more than you are. It does not require you to perform. It does not reward the achievement and withdraw when the achievement is absent. Real love sees the unedited version, the uncertainty, the exhaustion, the imperfection, the contradiction, and it stays. Not because staying is easy, because staying is the choice that has been made again and again with full information. That kind of love is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is the daily, deliberate decision to see someone fully and choose them anyway. To be honest when honesty is harder than performance. To be present when distraction is available. To sit with someone in their difficult moments, not because you have solved the difficulty, but because no one should have to navigate the difficult alone. That is what she offered me. And it took me a long time, too long, to understand that receiving it was not weakness, that allowing myself to be loved without earning it was not failure, that the thing I had been most afraid of, being truly known and finding out it was not enough, turned out to be the thing that set me free, because she knew me. She saw all of it, the performance and the fear beneath the performance, the achievement and the emptiness beneath the achievement, the strength and the exhaustion behind the strength. She saw all of it and she stayed. And in staying, she revised the equation that had been running in the background for decades. Turns out I was wrong about the equation. Turns out being known does not lead to being left. Turns out the real you, the unedited, unoptimized, fully human version, is actually the one worth staying for. I am still building. I want you to know that, because I do not want you to hear this as the story of someone who figured it all out and arrived at some permanent condition of peace and wholeness. I have not. I am still imperfect at presence. I still sometimes default to performance when honesty would serve better. I still sometimes feel the old pull toward isolation, toward convincing myself I am fine alone, toward treating my inner life like a problem to be managed rather than an experience to be lived. But I notice it now. That is the difference. I notice when I am running, and I have someone who notices with me, and together we choose something different. That is not transformation. That is the daily practice of it. That is what the rebuilt life actually looks like. Not arrival, practice, not perfection, direction. I choose every day to show up as a person rather than a performance. I choose every day to let the people I love actually know me. I choose every day to build something that feels like home rather than empire. Some days I do it well. Some days I fall short. Every day I try again. So here is what I want to leave you with. Not an instruction, not a plan. Something more honest than that. If there's someone in your life who has been offering you presence, not applause, not admiration, not the specific reward of your performance, but presence. The kind that stays, the kind that sees, the kind that offers honesty and asks for it in return. If there is someone who has been sitting patiently outside the walls you have built, not demanding entry, but remaining available, look at them. Actually look at them. Not through the lens of what they represent or what they require or what being loved by them will demand from you. Look at them as someone who has chosen you, who chooses you, who shows up for the full version of you even when the full version is difficult. Let them in. Not dramatically, not all at once. Not in some grand dismantling of everything you have built. Just open a door. Offer one honest sentence. Stay in the room a little longer before retreating to the armored version. Let the choice to be known be the first brick of something new, because the empire you have been building will not hold you when the storms come. Empires are for conquest, not for refuge. The thing that holds you, the thing that has always held the people who managed to build something that actually lasts, is not what you achieved. It is who you allowed in, who you let see you, who sat with you in the honest moments and chose to remain. That is the only foundation that does not crack under pressure. Don't deny it. You know this. You have always known this. You have just been afraid that you would open the door and find out that the real version of you was not worth staying for. Open the door anyway. Find out I am right. I built a life. Then I built an empire. Then I watched the empire reveal itself as a very elaborate kind of loneliness. Then I met someone who was patient enough to stay while I figured out the difference between building for conquest and building for home. Then I started over differently. With the right foundation, with presence instead of performance, with honesty instead of management. With the daily, imperfect, genuinely difficult practice of being known is the most ambitious thing I've ever done. It is the only thing I've ever built that actually feels like mine. Wait, before you scroll, tell me something. Tell yourself something. The true thing. The one that lives below the managed version. the one you have been too busy, too armored, too afraid to say out loud. Say it, even just in your own mind, in the privacy of this moment, because the confession is the foundation, and the foundation is where everything real begins.